Story 1. A few months ago, I was quick added on Snapchat by some girl who had a normal-looking Bitmoji and was fairly new to Snapchat. Her Snap score was only about 400 or 500. I accepted the request since I could always use some more friends and some more streaks, and she almost immediately texted me despite the request being about 6 hours old when I first saw it. She texted me, "Hey cutie, what's up?" I was a bit confused by this message as she had never seen a picture of me yet, and Bitmojis aren't necessarily accurate. I just replied, "Hello," and the conversation continued on as normal for about 10-15 minutes. Eventually she sent me a picture of herself. I was a little surprised by it, as she looked exactly like one of my girlfriend's friends that I had met on a night out one time. I simply dismissed it as being coincidental. People often have some who look similar to themselves. She requested a picture of myself, and I just sent her a simple selfie of me. Again, she referred to me as being cute, but it wasn't as weird this time because now she had actually seen me. I just thought of it as her being nice. She started flirting with me, even after I brought up how I had a girlfriend. She would say stuff like, "I wish you didn't have a girlfriend. You seem so sweet and cute, and the color of your eyes is making my heart flush." She would even get sexually explicit with some of her compliments. Out of nowhere, she sends me 2 more selfies of her. This time, they were 2 pictures of other women I had only met once or twice in my life. One of them was my girlfriend's other friend, and another was an old classmate of mine from 8th grade. Assuming it was my girlfriend doing some stupid loyalty test to me, I just said to her, "Nice try, Aurora," not my girl's real name. You should know after 2 years of dating I'd never cheat on you. After I said this, she sent me a picture of yet another girl I hardly knew and said, "Who the fuck is Aurora?" Freaked out a bit now, I asked who this really was. She got really pissy with me, saying how every new person she meets accuses her of being a catfish because she always looks like somebody they know. I asked her if she had more pictures of herself just to see if I'm not losing my mind. She sends me 5 more, each of yet another girl I knew. This time some of them were a bit closer to me. I asked her where she got the pictures from, and she was still insistent of them being of her, and promising she isn't a catfish. After about 10 minutes of me pressuring the catfish into giving herself up, she sent me a heart-chilling snap. It was a picture of the front of my old house where I moved away from about 3-4 years before this incident. It was taken at the same time of day as this conversation was happening, so I assumed she had taken it at that very moment. I now knew it couldn't be my girlfriend just being creepy, as we weren't dating when I lived there, nor did she ever know about me living there. I figured it was a friend of mine just playing some sick prank with an alt account. But some of the photos they used were of girls that they didn't know about my acquaintances with. She followed it up with several pictures of another girl. This time they weren't just normal selfies or group photos. They were candid shots of nobody other than my girlfriend. Some of them were of her sitting at stoplights in her car. Others were of her walking into the school we go to. My heart dropped. I blocked the person immediately and phoned my girlfriend to tell her of the situation. She assured me that it wasn't her or one of her friends doing some kind of prank or loyalty test, and that she didn't know somebody had been taking photos of her. I haven't been added by anyone similar of nature, or heard from that account ever again. I still have no idea who was actually behind it. My friends that I or Aurora still had contact with have since privated their Instagram accounts, which is where the pictures the account sent me came from. And my girlfriend and I have disabled our Snap Maps to everyone, including our close friends. I still want to believe this was just some sick prank from one of my best friends or something, and not just some genuinely creepy person who is stalking me and my girlfriend. Story 2. In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Oakwood, there lived a teenager named Emily who was fascinated by horror stories. She spent countless nights devouring scary tales on the internet, but nothing prepared her for the chilling experience she would encounter on Snapchat. One evening, as Emily scrolled through her Snapchat feed, she received a friend request from an unfamiliar username, the Ghost Watcher. Intrigued by the mysterious name, Emily accepted the request, expecting nothing more than the usual snaps from friends. However, as soon as she added the Ghost Watcher as a friend, her phone screen glitched, and a series of disturbing images flashed before her eyes. She quickly dismissed it as a technical glitch and tried to shake off the feeling of unease that lingered. That night, Emily received her first snap from the Ghost Watcher. It was a dark, grainy photo of a shadowy figure standing outside her bedroom window. Heart pounding, Emily looked out the window but saw nothing but darkness. She tried to convince herself that it was just a prank, but a sense of dread gnawed at her insides. The snaps from the ghost watcher became more frequent and menacing. Each one depicted eerie scenes: an empty hallway with flickering lights, a shadow creeping up the staircase, and even a distorted face staring back at her from the darkness. Terrified, Emily confided in her friends, but they dismissed her concerns as an overactive imagination. Desperate for answers, Emily decided to investigate the origin of the mysterious snaps herself. She traced the username The Ghost Watcher back to an abandoned house on the outskirts of town. With trembling hands, she pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside, her heart pounding in her chest. What she found inside chilled her to the bone. The walls were covered in photographs of her, taken from angles only someone inside her own house could capture. As realization dawned on her, Emily heard a sinister whisper behind her. Turning around, she came face to face with the source of the haunting snaps. A ghostly figure shrouded in darkness, its eyes gleaming with malevolence. Frozen in fear, Emily watched as the figure reached out towards her, its ghostly hand passing through her body. In that moment, Emily knew she had stumbled upon something beyond her comprehension. With a scream, she fled the abandoned house, vowing never to return. From that day on, Emily lived in constant fear, haunted by the memory of the Ghost Watcher and the chilling snaps that had invaded her life. And though she tried to convince herself it was all just a nightmare, deep down she knew the horror was all too real. As for the Ghost Watcher, its true identity remained a mystery, lurking in the shadows of the internet, waiting to strike again. Story 3. Lester and his wife of 10 years, Emily, recently moved into a very large Victorian house in rural Maine. Their marriage had been ripped to shreds by the death of their 5-year-old son, and while they loved each other, they had not been coping well. Lester developed an anger problem while Emily drank a bottle of wine every night. Seemingly everything reminded them of their late son, and Emily had bad dreams every night about the moment she saw her boy being hit by a pickup truck driven by a bigoted man in his 40s. One night, Lester found himself unable to sleep and wound up sitting on the edge of his bed staring into the wall as if something was about to crawl out of it. Emily could not sleep either, but she remained lying on her side with her eyes half open. "Lester, what are you doing? It's 2 a.m. Lester groaned and lit up a cigarette. "I can't sleep. I keep thinking about what went wrong with our Toby. I couldn't run fast enough despite going on 4-mile runs every morning." Emily sat up and stared at her husband. "Why are you smoking?" "Because I have writer's block," Lester barked. "I am a somewhat recognizable novelist who publishes a whole book every 7 years, but these days I can hardly string together a few sentences. Trust me, I know all about disappointment. As a stay-at-home painter, I sell 1 piece a month and I have depression. Still, we can afford this beautiful home, so why?" Their conversation was promptly cut off by a loud thud coming from the hallway. They looked up in silence before another thud rung out. Lester put on his slippers and bolted towards the door. "What are you doing?" asked Emily. "What do you think? I'm going to go see what that sound was." He almost went to the closet for his gun, but then he realized that a weapon would not be conceivably useful in that sort of situation. He figured that if there was something out there, he could yell loud enough for it to run away. So he simply cleared his mind and exited the room. Lester stepped carefully down the hallway before noticing that a door to his right was open. He knew he closed that door before going to bed, so he thought this was strange. Still, without a second thought, he entered the room and closed the door behind him. The room was pitch black, but he did not think to turn on the lights. Instead, he retrieved a cigarette lighter from the pocket of his sweatpants and flicked it on. From the other end of the room, he heard a faint growling sound. He thought that it must be a dog that the previous homeowners left behind, so he approached it without hesitation. With each step, the growling got louder and louder, but this did not deter him. He thought this dog must have been starving, so he bravely pushed on. When he got closer, lightning flashed and he could not believe what was illuminated. It was not a dog at all, but rather an alien. He realized that this made a lot of sense and that it did not really need to make sense. It was an alien, so that was all he needed to know. The alien reached out, and both of them disappeared. The next morning, Emily decided to move back to New York City. She did not attempt to sell the house nor pack any of her things. She just got in her modest sedan and drove away, crying as the trees passed by. Author's note: thank you so much for watching my newest story. I hope you enjoyed the tale of a troubled couple struggling with things the average family could relate to. I know it was not very long, but it really did not need to be. True horror is not about fancy words or bizarre creatures. It is about spinning a tale that is equal parts disturbing and familiar. I wanted to make a point loudly and concisely, and I believe I did just that. Have a good afternoon and stay spooked.